Hello, welcome to my mid-month update for a month without a multi-tool, which is February 2023. The entire month I've gone without a multi-tool up to this point. I'm just going to provide a quick update on all the stuff I've swapped, some pros and cons, some things I missed, that type of stuff. Let's talk about the utility knives that I used during the month and what I swapped them out for. So I started the month with a Prybrid X, which has this more X-Acto knife style blade in it, which is also a combination pry bar, which I really haven't used much for that purpose. Then I moved over to a Prybrid, and the main reason I did this is not for the pry bar. It's really for the utility knife. I like the format of this utility knife just in the hand, and it's not shaped like so many other utility knives. Like if I have a more classic style utility knife around here, it's not shaped like a regular utility knife. It's got an interesting shape to it. Even though I only really use it as a utility knife, or I might use it as a cord cutter if I needed such a thing, that's not what I use it for. The third knife I moved to is a JerryRigEverything utility knife. I've been using this for over a week now, and I guess the thing to me about this is it feels robust. Like these metal scales are nice. They're not anything special, right? They feel like kind of a like base metal, just a generic metal, but they have some nice texturing. It's more appealing than a lot of utility knives, but it is just a utility knife. The one thing that really irritates me about this utility knife is this button to release the blade. I really don't like how soft this button is to push to release the blade. There were a number of times that whenever I was kind of choking up on something to cut it and getting deep, until I had adjusted to it, I was pressing this button, which means I was releasing my blade. That was not such a good thing. I don't like that design. It really should be either a stiffer button or a mechanism that requires some other action other than pressing. For like basic lightweight stuff, this is fine. But whenever I was doing heavy work, this button released the blade too easily. Overall, I like it. It's nice compared to the rest of my utility knives that are kind of the generic Home Depot, Lowe's style utility knives. But it's nothing super special. I just like the fact that I'm supporting JerryRigEverything. That's it for utility knives. That's what happened during the last 2 weeks. I may move back to a regular knife, or I may try a different utility knife, but I'm really not sure yet. I'm pretty happy with this one generally, other than that release mechanism, and now I've adjusted to it. Moving on to pliers, we have the Knipex Cobra 5-inch, which I then swapped for the Knipex Cobra 4-inch pliers on 2.9. I think they're perfectly functional compared to the larger ones. I like how the 5-inch feels in the hand a bit better, but these are smaller. And if I grab my tail of knives organizer here and I stick them in here, this one sticks up about this far, making it easy to grab. This one sits a little more recessed, but the advantage of it sitting more recessed is that it never pokes me in the side. It's also less likely to bang up other things in the holder, as I noticed with this one where I stuck it into the kind of multi-tool or knife pouch here. It would bang into my pins. We'll talk about that more here in a few minutes. Overall, I like them so far. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Talking about flashlights, on 218, I moved from the Olight Warrior Mini 2 over to the Olight Arkfeld. I got the Arkfeld in September-ish of last year, and I keep moving back to it. And I just really like this flashlight, and it's done a good job for me. It's got just standard flashlight, and then it also has a green laser pointer, which, you know, if you have dogs or cats or other animals that might be amused by it, or you have a purpose for a laser pointer, that could be cool. I don't often have a purpose other than getting my dogs to chase it around. I moved back over to this one, not because there were any deficiencies in the Warrior Mini 2, just because I was switching it up, wanted something a bit different. Couple comments on the Warrior Mini 2 after carrying it in the tail of knives holder for a couple weeks, is that the way it fits into the holder, sometimes whenever you go to pull it out, unless you're very precise about how you grab it, you can accidentally activate this tail switch. I've noticed that a handful of times. It's always something I've been able to correct easily. It's never been activated when I have not been reaching for the flashlight. Always when I do. But sometimes whenever I go to push the flashlight out of the holder, the flashlight will kick on because I'll activate this tail switch. Plus or minus, either way. The one other observation I have about this light is that it has a safety mechanism built in to reduce the brightness of the beam. If you're really close, it should reduce the brightness of the beam. But the other thing is, it also prevents you from changing the brightness. I'm holding the button, which would normally change the brightness, and I can't change the brightness right now because of that. But if I pull it back up and then I hold it down, it'll change the brightness. Just an observation on that. If this proximity sensor is activated, you cannot adjust the brightness. You can still turn the light on and off. Moving on from these two. Tape measures. Some commenters had mentioned different brands of tape measures. There's been at least 2, if not 3 so far. I went and started hunting down some different tape measures. I have a few on order. To bridge the gap, I ordered some ones that look to be nicer off of Amazon. And right now out of the group I've ordered for daily carry, this Crescent Lufkin 6-foot one seems to be the best fit. It's nice. It's got both metric and imperial units on it, so that's cool. The one thing I don't like compared to my little fabric tape measure here is that this one locks and this one does not. Whatever, it still feels nicer. It's a little bit smaller, a little more compact, a little narrower. It's nice to carry. That's it for tape measures. Next on the list, we have pins. We started this event with having a Grimsmo Saga in my Tale of Knives organizer. I started doing projects. I don't like risking tearing this pin up, so I pulled it out of the case. I stuck it into the drawer where it lives. I then moved over to the copper Urban Survival Gear bolt action pin, but once I was carrying the Knipex a lot, I noticed that sometimes they would rub against the side of this pin, and there's a tiny little spot of abrasion there. I don't mind my tools getting torn up, but I want to tear it up while I'm using it for its intended purpose, not while carrying it around. I took this one out. I moved over to a retracting Fisher space pin, and that's what I've been carrying since. Works fine, does a good job. My clip here is super glued on. I've thought about moving other pins. I've considered it, but I just haven't got around to it, and this does the work I need it to. For pry bars, these may look strangely similar on video. They should look strangely similar because they're just different colors. I think this is the polished Teal Designs MDP, and this one is anodized Teal Designs MDP. It's another one that I ordered and it arrived, so I swapped it into my holder and I've been using it. This steel back plate is starting to get a little beat up, but I've been using it pretty hard. I have used this thing as a pry bar, not only because of my roof issue, but also because of some window issues in the house. Then on top of it, I had to replace the regulator mechanism on my wife's car door. The window stopped going up, and so this pry bar got a lot of use in the last week and a half or so. That's that for pry bars. Still very happy with these ones. I've been tempted to order Vero Designs or some of the other brands of pry bars with screwdrivers because I really like the format, but I really don't like the bands, and this magnet mechanism is nice. I need to make sure that I can find more that use exclusively magnets or something else that doesn't require bands. Olight has a EDC tool. I'm just waiting for a sale before I order that one with the little flipper. Maybe I'll throw a little image up in the corner of the screen of it. In the category of wins and losses, things I wish I had. I wish I had a wire cutter during the last few weeks. That has been a pretty big miss for me. I often need to cut wire of different sizes, normally pretty small. Not having a wire cutter like I do on a multi-tool was a real loss for me. So that was kind of a bummer. The other big loss for me was having a wire stripper. Whenever you're dealing in low gauge wire where it's very thick, what you can do is you can just trim around it using a utility knife and pop the sheath off. But whenever you're dealing in very thin wire, especially braided, a utility knife can often cut the individual strands of wire. I wish I had a tool that fit that need. It would be great if the Knipex had some sort of function for also cutting, because then I wouldn't even have that desire. Another one is a long nose flat-headed screwdriver. While I was working on my wife's car and a few other little projects around the house, I needed to really get deep into holes, like say 4 to 6 inches, and then just needed a little edge to be able to pop open a clip or something. Because I was replacing a door panel in my wife's car, it all turned out fine. My toolbox was 5 feet away, but this just didn't cut it. And this side was a little too thick on the Teal Designs MDP. And then everything else I tried just didn't work out. So I ended up going and getting a screwdriver out of the toolbox. That was one of the things that if I had a multi-tool, especially one with an awl, I think I could have done the job, but I didn't. Moving on, awesome things about the last few weeks in discoveries is that the Knipex pliers were really functional compared to multi-tool pliers for me. I think it has to do with the angle of attack on this, whereas a normal multi-tool, you're coming straight in. With the Knipex, you're at this angle, and it just feels like I have not only more grip on it, partially due to the shape of the handles on most multi-tools, but it also gave me this angle that was very nice in addition to the grip. I found that every bolt I tried to grab with this thing, I was able to grab suitably and tightly, and there was at least one case where I thought I'd have to go and get an appropriate wrench, and I just gripped down on it, turned it, and it was good to go. And there was no slippage, no real damage of the bolt or anything else. That was a real win. So the other big win this month was the Trayvax Contour Wallet. I always knew I might like this wallet, but it turned out to be a much bigger winner than I expected. One of the commenters said it was their favorite wallet. It's a really good wallet. I cannot say that it's replaced the spot in my heart that the Trayvax Ascent holds. And that's mainly because of the cool ejection mechanism with the fabric. What this does give me is a nice frame. I really like it. I still don't need a bottle opener on my wallet, but this mechanism is very nice. It's good to carry. It is smooth enough that it doesn't seem to tear anything up in my pockets, or I haven't noticed anything. The one thing I will note is that even though this metal seems like on the edges it may be a little more polished than some of the other Trayvax wallets, it still can do a number on a credit card. I put a real credit card next to this frame and have been using it that way. I'm still carrying it that way whenever I'm not on camera with my real credit cards in it. And it'll still put the horizontal lines across the credit card. And so I'm sure it would produce some wear and tear over time if you used it heavily. I'm going to move back to using a plastic backer card whenever I use this, but right now I have a credit card that expires next month, so it's easy to be a sacrificial lamb for this experiment. So here are my mid-month observations from not having a multi-tool. Not having a multi-tool isn't so bad. There are tools like the awl, which is the example that stands out to me every time I think about it that I wish I had for my multi-tool. But at the same time, a multi-tool is a big box of compromises. It does an awful lot of stuff. It does a few things great, half the functions are okay, and then a bunch of other stuff that's just kind of layered in. And I think there really is a question here about whether or not I need all that stuff to be carrying on a day-to-day basis, or I can continue to slim this down and still get the core jobs I need done every single day. It's a real good question. Hey, thanks for watching this video today. I really appreciate it. If you really enjoyed this video, please consider liking. If you super duper enjoyed it, consider subscribing. And that's it. I hope you're having a great day.